In this video, we are going to learn about some of the rules which we should be using while using hooks. So essentially, by now you must be familiar with the common syntax of using hooks. Something like, let's say we're using use state, and let's have a variable count and set count. So we used hooks at multiple places, but there are some rules related to hooks which you should be following for it to work correctly. There are not many of them, only mostly a couple of them, but we'll have a look at that. So essentially, this thing is important because if you don't follow these rules, then React will have a difficult time in order to figure out how to apply hooks to your functions properly. So one of the first rules is only call hooks at the top level. What does this mean? It means that if you are using a hook something like this, then you should not use it in any form of condition or loop or inside some nested function, which means that let's say you have some function foo inside here. Don't use something like this. Don't use something like this also. Don't have a condition something, and inside if don't use something like this. You understand why? See, the problem is that let's say we have two use states or one use state, one let's say use effect or anything. The thing is that let's say the first one is inside if statement and second one is not inside if statement, right? Now what happens is that when React needs to preserve the state of hooks between multiple renders, right? So you know that these things have internal state. Okay, so how does React know that this one this C is attached to this second state and count is attached to this state if it is not able to read all the hooks at one time? So initially you can understand that let's say this condition is true in the first render, then it knows that yeah, this count variable should be used in, let's say this all these variables are already declared here, and after that it knows that this variable is attached from this state, right? Now after that this thing is attached to this thing. Now in the second render, if this thing is not being read, then it will have a difficult time to figure out that yeah, this I attached the first state to count variable. Now the first state is coming here. Now it is trying to attach it to C, rather it should be attached to count. So anyways, it is internal detail, but the point is that you should never do something like this. Okay, you should always have all the hooks, whether it is normal use state or for that matter any other thing, use effect or something like this, but never have anything in conditions. Okay, this ensures that hooks are called in the same order in each render of the React component. Okay, and one more thing is that if you are calling everything at one at the top level, it does not mean that so sometimes the rules might break even if you are doing everything at first render. So for example, you also have to have sorry, not use effect like this, you have to have some function like here. Okay, but the point is that let's say you are using something like this, and let's say there is a some if condition, and if that condition is satisfied, then you return. Now again we have the same problem, right? That let's say this condition did not satisfy in the first render, but or let's say this and in the second condition, second render, this condition did satisfy. Then what will happen? In the first render it will see three hooks, 1 2 3. In the second render, let's say this thing is returning, then it will not be able to see the third hook. So two things you have to remember: everything, all the hooks should be at first level. That is first thing. Second thing is that there should not be any early return. If any return is there, then that should be only after all the hooks are used. Okay, so that apart from each hook is having at the being at the top level, the count of hooks is also same in the in each render, which means that if there are three hooks, then each render of the component should see three hooks every time, because again, as we discussed earlier, it preserves state, and So for example, use state will have internal state, use effect will have effects, and its cleanup functions, all those it has to remember, right? If in case, let's say in some particular condition, in some particular situation, you have to use condition, which means that, you know what, whatever is inside this, whatever something is there, now this thing has to be only run when some particular condition is met, okay, some condition. But you should not use something like this. Let's say if condition, then only do this. You should never do this. Just now we understood, right, that we should not do it. And that's why rather than doing this, we should do something like this, which means that the condition should be inside use effect. So again, whatever our purpose is, what our purpose was, that whatever we are doing something inside the effect, that is inside some condition, okay. So that condition should be inside the use effect rather than outside, because outside will make, again, that it will break the rule number 1, that you should only call all hooks at the top level. So that condition must always be satisfied. Okay, now let's come back to the second rule. The second rule is that only call hooks from React functions, okay. And for that matter, it cannot be any functions, it should be only two types of functions. One is functional component, which is this thing, which is a proper component which returns some JSX, which means that it is a normal functional component. Or that function can also be custom hooks, which means that, let's say you are moving this hook to some other function, but then in order to use this function, that function should be some hook, okay. So let's say some use my hook, some function is there, and inside this you can use this, right, and then you would rather use that hook here. So that is also fine, which means that now both the rules are satisfied, right? So in this case I have created a new hook, but this hook is, again, this, all the rules will apply to this custom hook also, which means that this again also should not be in any condition. So like normal hooks which are inbuilt, any custom hook should also follow all the same rules, which means that they also should be at the top level, and they can only be used inside functions which are either components or other custom hooks. Now again, like you created some custom hook, similarly you could create some other function, let's say custom hook 2, and then you can use that custom hook, use hook 2, and then you can create a new function. So all that is possible, but the main point is that everything you are doing, that should follow these two rules. So in this case you can see that this hook and this hook is at the top level, and here also you can see that all the hooks which are used are either used directly inside a particular React component, or they are used inside some custom hook. So this is custom hook. They can also have inbuilt hooks or custom hooks, okay. So these are the two rules which you have to definitely consider, okay. Now apart from these two rules, there is one minor rule which is like you should always follow that also, that all the hook names should start with use. Now all the hooks which are pre-built in React, obviously their name is starting with use, so you don't have to do anything. But if you are using some custom hook, then you should always name your custom hook also starting with use. So actually internally the rule is something like that, it should be use, and at least one character should be there after that. It can be more than that also, but the fourth character should be a capital letter. So that is how it is configured. Configured in what? Actually this is configured in linting tools. Linting tools are used for detecting syntax error and giving you warnings and errors in case there is something wrong. But the point is that these sort of things help us detect errors. Now if you name this randomly, like I don't know, my random hook or something, so if you name it some randomly, then how React will know that this is a hook, and all the rules, like for example everything should be, all the other hooks should be at the top level, or or these sort of things, and whether this let's say you are using this, you are using this, then how will it know that this is not a normal function, this is a particular hook on which you have to apply this logic, which means that if you here you use some condition, then React will say that it is fine, but it will think that it is a normal function call, not a hook. Okay, and that's why it is important to have the name starting with use, so that React can give warning that no, this is a hook and it should not be in a condition. So for those matters, definitely all the hooks should the names should start with use. And for our purposes, only the thing will be that if we create any custom hook, then its name should start with use. Otherwise, inbuilt are already with use, right? Now, apart from this, which helps us in detecting errors while linting warnings, the thing is that it also serves as another purpose, that most of the functions which you will be using while using React hooks, they will be like normal pure components, pure functions, which means that they don't have any side effects or state or something, right? But we know that hooks are special. Hooks preserve some state internally inside it, right? So if you use names like something like this, then it is very much clear that yeah, everything else is fine. It's just that this particular line, and this particular line have some state inside it, because they use the names starting with use, which means that they are hooks. So it is pretty clear to the developer that they have internal state inside this, which means that it clearly shows that which part of the code has stateful logic inside that. Okay, so that is a minor third rule, but still very important. But majorly these are the two main rules which you should follow. Okay, so I believe that should be all for this video, which should tell us that how generally we should use hooks inside our functions. So yeah, that will be all for this one. Thanks a lot. See you in the next one.